Captain Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of a human research station New Horizon, watching the dying star cast its final light across the Kepler 442 system. The red dwarf had been slowly fading for the past 50 years, and now its planets faced inevitable doom. What made this tragedy worse was that one of those planets was home to the Zephyrians, a peaceful species that had just discovered fire when humans first encountered them 3 decades ago. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Council," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Sarah didn't need to guess what the message contained. For the past 6 months, the Council had been crystal clear about their position regarding the Zephyrian crisis. "Let me guess," Sarah said, not turning from the viewport. "Another formal denial of our rescue proposal?" "Yes, ma'am." Counselor Vextar of the Hegemony was particularly blunt this time. Sarah finally turned around, her weathered face showing the strain of months of diplomatic battles. At 45, she had served in the human fleet for over 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for the bureaucratic nightmare that was the Galactic Council. "Put it through to my ready room. I'll review it later." The truth was, Sarah already knew what the message would say. The same thing every Council communication had said for months. The Zephyrians were classified as a pre-contact civilization under Galactic Law 847b, which meant any interference in their natural development was strictly forbidden. The fact that their star was dying was considered a natural cosmic event beyond the scope of Council intervention protocols. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief xenobiologist, entered the observation deck with a tablet in her hands and exhaustion written across her face. She had been working around the clock, documenting everything she could about Zephyrian culture before it was lost forever. "Sarah, you need to see the latest population analysis," Elena said, her voice hollow. "The atmospheric deterioration is accelerating faster than we predicted. The Zephyrians have maybe 8 months before their world becomes completely uninhabitable." Sarah took the tablet and scrolled through the data. The numbers painted a grim picture. The Zephyrians numbered approximately 2.4 million individuals spread across their planet's 3 major continents. They were a humanoid species, roughly 4 feet tall, with translucent blue skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold an ancient wisdom despite their technological primitiveness. Their society was built around community cooperation, art, and a deep spiritual connection to their dying star, which they called the Great Father. "What about their understanding of what's happening?" Sarah asked. Elena pulled up another file on the tablet. "That's the heartbreaking part. Their astronomers have figured out that the Great Father is sick. They've been holding prayer ceremonies and festivals, trying to heal their star through spiritual energy. They know they're dying, but they don't understand why or how to save themselves." Sarah handed back the tablet and walked to the communications console. "Webb, give me a secure channel to Admiral Rodriguez at Earth Command." "Ma'am, the Council has explicitly forbidden any discussion of intervention with human leadership," Webb reminded her carefully. "I'm aware of what the Council has forbidden, Lieutenant." "Make the call." Within minutes, the grizzled face of Admiral Carlos Rodriguez appeared on the main screen. His expression was grim even before Sarah began speaking. "Admiral, I'm requesting permission to proceed with Operation Sanctuary," Sarah said without preamble. Rodriguez rubbed his temples. "Sarah, we've been through this. The political ramifications of defying the Council would be enormous. Humanity has only been a Council member for 15 years. We can't afford to be seen as rogues who ignore galactic law. Sir, with respect, we're talking about an entire civilization. Over 2 million sentient beings who are going to die because the Council is more concerned with paperwork than lives. You think I don't know that?" Rodriguez's voice rose slightly. "You think I sleep well at night knowing we could save them, but won't because of political considerations? But if we act without authorization, the Council could revoke our membership. They could cut off our access to galactic trade routes, technology exchanges, even basic diplomatic relations. We could find ourselves isolated in the galaxy." Sarah had heard these arguments before, but they rang hollow when she thought about the Zephyrian children she had observed through long-range scanners, playing in their crystal gardens while their world slowly died around them. Admiral, what's the point of being part of a galactic community if that community stands by and watches genocide through inaction? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Sarah, I want to help them. God knows I do. But I have to think about the bigger picture. Humanity's place in the galaxy, our future relationships with other species. And what if other species judge us not by our political maneuvering, but by our willingness to help those who can't help themselves? Sarah countered. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, but Sarah could see that Rodriguez's position wouldn't change. When the call ended, she stood alone in the observation deck, watching the dying star and thinking about the impossible situation. Dr. Vasquez returned an hour later with more data. I've been analyzing their social structure, she said. The Zephyrians have something remarkable, Sarah. They have no concept of war. In their entire recorded history, there's no evidence of organized violence between their communities. When resources become scarce, they share. When disputes arise, they mediate through community elders. They've built a truly peaceful civilization. Sarah felt a weight settle in her chest. And we're going to let them die because of bureaucracy. Maybe not, Elena said quietly. I've been thinking about the regulations. Galactic Law 847b forbids interference with pre-contact civilizations. But what if we made contact first? Sarah turned sharply. Elena, first contact protocols require council approval. The authorization process alone takes months. And you said we have 8 months before their world becomes uninhabitable. I know, but hear me out. What if we initiated contact unofficially? What if we presented it as an emergency rescue operation for a newly contacted species? That's still a massive violation of protocol. Elena nodded. Yes, it is. But it's a violation that might save 2.4 million lives. Sarah stared out at the dying star, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. Even if we made contact and got them to accept our help, we'd still need massive resources to evacuate an entire planet. Ships, supplies, a destination world that could support them. I've been working on that too, Elena said, pulling up another file on her tablet. The Proxima Centauri system has a planet, Proxima b, that's been uninhabited since the Terran expansion. It's within Zephyrian atmospheric tolerances, and the stellar radiation levels are actually better than what they're dealing with now. Sarah knew Proxima b. It was technically within human territory, a world that had been surveyed and approved for colonization, but never settled due to its distance from major trade routes. We'd need council approval to resettle them there. Actually, we wouldn't, Elena said with a slight smile. Proxima b is classified as a human colonial world. According to the Human Colonial Charter, we have the right to grant sanctuary to refugees without council oversight. For the first time in months, Sarah felt a spark of hope. But it was quickly tempered by the magnitude of what they were discussing. Elena, even if the legal framework supports us, we're talking about evacuating an entire planet. The logistics alone are staggering. I know. We need every transport ship in the human fleet, probably civilian vessels too. And we'd have to do it all in secret until the operation was already underway. Sarah walked to her command chair and sat down heavily. If we do this, there's no going back. Our careers would be over. We'd probably face court-martial. And if something goes wrong during the evacuation, if we don't do this, an entire civilization dies, Elena said simply. A peaceful, beautiful civilization that never hurt anyone. Sarah, I've studied dozens of species throughout my career. The Zephyrians are special. They've achieved something that most civilizations, including our own, have struggled with for millennia. They've learned to live in harmony with each other and their environment. The galaxy would be poorer without them. Sarah thought about her daughter back on Earth, about the kind of universe she wanted to leave behind. She thought about the Zephyrian children playing in their crystal gardens, unaware that their world was ending. She thought about the council chambers where bureaucrats debated legal precedents while civilization faced extinction. If we're going to do this, she said slowly, we'll need allies. Other humans who are willing to risk everything for what's right. Elena smiled. I think you'd be surprised how many people in the fleet have been thinking the same thing we have. Over the next few days, Sarah quietly reached out to trusted colleagues throughout the human fleet. The response was more overwhelming than she had expected. Captain Jennifer Walsh of the Heavy Transport Armstrong was immediately on board. Commander David Kim of the science vessel Curiosity offered his ship without hesitation. Even some civilian captains, when approached through intermediaries, expressed willingness to help. But the most significant support came from an unexpected source. Admiral Rodriguez called Sarah for a private, off-the-record conversation 3 days after their official discussion. "Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation," Rodriguez said, his voice carefully neutral. "I want to make something very clear. The human fleet cannot, under any circumstances, officially support an unauthorized rescue operation." "I understand, sir. However," Rodriguez continued, "if a group of human vessels happen to experience simultaneous mechanical failures that required them to make emergency stops in the Kepler 442 system, well, that would be an unfortunate coincidence." Sarah felt her heart race. "Sir, and if those vessels, during their emergency repairs, happen to encounter a previously unknown intelligent species in distress, first contact protocols would require them to render assistance." The implication was clear. Rodriguez was giving them unofficial approval, plausible deniability built into the operation from the start. "Thank you, sir," Sarah said quietly. "Don't thank me yet, Captain. If this goes wrong, I'll have no choice but to hang you out to dry. The political pressure will be enormous." "Understood. But, Sarah, if you save them, if you actually pull this off, it will be the finest moment in human history." After the call ended, Sarah stood alone in her ready room, staring at a picture of the Zephyrian homeworld that Elena had taken from long-range sensors. The planet was beautiful, with swirling blue and green continents under a canopy of crystalline clouds. In 8 months, it would be a lifeless rock orbiting a dead star, unless humanity chose to act. Sarah activated her personal communicator and sent out a coded message to the network of allies they had assembled. "Operation Sanctuary is authorized. Begin preparations immediately." Within hours, ships throughout human space began reporting mechanical difficulties that would require them to rendezvous in the Kepler 442 system. The largest humanitarian rescue operation in human history was about to begin, in direct defiance of galactic law. As Sarah prepared for the journey ahead, she thought about the choice humanity was making. They were risking their standing in the galactic community, potentially facing isolation and punishment, all to save a species they barely knew. But that, she realized, was exactly what made it the right thing to do. Sometimes the greatest courage came not from following orders, but from doing what was right despite the consequences. The Zephyrians were about to learn that they were not alone in the universe. And the universe was about to learn what humanity would do for those who could not save themselves. 3 weeks later, the Kepler 442 system witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. 27 human vessels, ranging from military transports to civilian freight haulers, had converged in what appeared to be the largest mechanical failure incident ever recorded. The ships maintained perfect formation despite their supposed breakdowns, and their communication channels buzzed with activity that sounded remarkably well-coordinated for vessels in distress. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the command center of the New Horizon, now serving as the flagship for what the crews had unofficially dubbed the Sanctuary Fleet. Around her, the most dedicated and brave humans she had ever worked with prepared for a mission that would either be remembered as humanity's finest hour or its greatest folly. "Contact teams are ready for deployment," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had been promoted to head of xenological operations for the mission. "We've identified 3 primary population centers where we can make initial contact with minimal cultural disruption." Commander Lisa Park, a specialist in first contact protocols who had volunteered for the mission despite knowing it could end her career, approached with a tablet full of linguistic data. "We've made significant progress with their language. It's actually quite beautiful, with tonal variations that seem to convey emotional context as well as literal meaning. The universal translators should be able to handle basic communication within a few hours of first contact. Sarah nodded, but her attention was drawn to the main display showing the Zephyrian homeworld. Even from orbit, the effects of their dying star were visible. What had once been lush, green continents were showing brown patches of dying vegetation. The polar ice caps were expanding as global temperatures dropped, and atmospheric readings showed concerning changes in the chemical composition of their air. "How long do we have once we make contact?" Sarah asked Elena. "Best case scenario, 6 months before the planet becomes completely uninhabitable. Worst case, for months. The atmospheric degradation is accelerating, and we're seeing more frequent seismic activity as the planet's core begins to cool." Lieutenant Webb approached with another update. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're demanding to know why so many human vessels have gathered in this system." Sarah had been expecting this. "What's our official response?" "Admiral Rodriguez is handling the inquiries. He's filed reports indicating that our vessels suffered simultaneous navigation system failures due to a previously undetected magnetic anomaly in the region. The Council is sending a technical investigation team, but they won't arrive for at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Sarah mused. That should be enough time to make first contact and begin the initial phases of evacuation. Once we've established the Zephyrians as a contacted species, the legal framework changes entirely. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a detailed map of the Zephyrian homeworld on the main display. "We've identified their primary city as the best location for first contact. It's called Elthara in their language, which roughly translates to Heart of Harmony. The population there is about 300,000, and it seems to be their cultural and spiritual center." Commander Park added more context. "What's fascinating is their urban planning. Elthara isn't built in the same way as human cities, with districts and commercial zones. Instead, it's organized around community circles, each one containing about 1,000 individuals. These circles are connected by beautiful walkways lined with what appears to be some kind of crystal technology that provides light and heat." Sarah studied the images of Zephyrian architecture. Their buildings were organic in shape, seeming to grow from the ground rather than being constructed upon it. The crystal formations that Commander Park had mentioned weren't just decorative. They appeared to be integral to the Zephyrian way of life, providing energy and even serving as communication networks between different parts of their cities. "Their technology is fascinating," Elena continued. "It's not mechanical in the way we understand it. They seem to have developed a form of bioengineering that allows them to grow their tools and structures rather than manufacturing them. Their understanding of crystal matrices and biological energy systems is actually quite sophisticated, even if they haven't developed metallurgy or electronics. Which means they might be more adaptable to relocation than we initially thought," Sarah realized. "If their technology is based on biological systems, they might be able to recreate it on a new world." "Exactly. Proxima b has similar crystal formations and biological diversity. With some preparation, they could potentially rebuild their civilization there." The discussion was interrupted by an urgent alarm from the communication station. Webb looked up from his console with a concerned expression. "Captain, we're detecting a Council patrol ship entering the system. It's the Hegemony Pride, a Vorthan heavy cruiser." Sarah's heart sank. The Council investigation team wasn't supposed to arrive for 2 weeks, but apparently they had decided to send an advance scout. "How long until they reach scanning range of the planet?" 8 hours, ma'am." Sarah looked around the command center at the faces of her crew. They had all known this mission carried enormous risks, but now those risks were materializing faster than expected. "We proceed with first contact immediately. If we're going to be discovered, we might as well have something to show for it." Elena nodded grimly. "I'll prep the contact teams. We can have shuttles in the atmosphere within 2 hours." "Make it 1 hour," Sarah said. "And Elena, good luck down there. You're about to make history." 90 minutes later, 3 human shuttles descended through the Zephyrian atmosphere toward Elthara. Elena sat in the lead shuttle, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Beside her, Commander Park reviewed the first contact protocols they had hastily adapted for this unique situation. Remember, Elena said to her team over the comm system, we're not here as conquerors or even as explorers. We're here as friends offering help to a people in desperate need. Everything we do in the next few hours will determine not just the success of this mission, but how an entire civilization views humanity for generations to come. As they broke through the clouds, the beauty of the Zephyrian world took Elena's breath away. Despite the dying vegetation and expanding ice caps, there was something magical about the landscape below. Crystal formations jutted from the ground like geometric forests, and the city seemed to glow with a soft, organic light that reminded Elena of bioluminescent organisms she had studied on ocean worlds. An Aelthera, coming into view, reported the pilot. My God, it's beautiful. The Zephyrian capital spread below them like a living jewel. The crystal formations Elena had seen in satellite images were even more impressive up close, forming intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. The city's organic buildings rose from the ground in spiraling towers that looked more grown than built, and connecting them all with the walkways Park had mentioned, glowing bridges of crystal and biological material that formed a complex network throughout the city. There, Elena pointed to a large, circular area at the city's heart. That looks like a public gathering space. If we land there, we'll be visible to a large number of Zephyrians without being threatening. As the shuttles descended toward the plaza, Elena could see Zephyrians emerging from buildings and walkways to stare up at them. The aliens were even more beautiful in person than the long-range scans had suggested. Their translucent blue skin seemed to shimmer in the light of their dying star, and their large, expressive eyes held an intelligence that was immediately recognizable despite the vast differences in their physiology. The shuttle touched down gently in the center of the plaza, and Elena took a deep breath. This is it, people. First contact with the Zephyrians. Let's make sure we do this right. Elena and Commander Park emerged from the shuttle slowly, their hands visible and empty, universal gestures of peace that they hoped would be understood. Around the plaza, hundreds of Zephyrians had gathered, but they weren't fleeing or showing signs of panic. Instead, they seemed curious, their large eyes studying the newcomers with what Elena interpreted as cautious interest. A group of Zephyrians approached from the far side of the plaza. They were slightly taller than the others and wore what appeared to be ceremonial clothing made from the same crystal material that powered their city. Elena activated her universal translator and stepped forward. Greetings, she said, her voice being translated into the melodic tones of the Zephyrian language. We are travelers from beyond the stars. We come in peace, seeking to offer friendship and aid to your people. The lead Zephyrian, an individual with intricate crystal patterns embedded in their skin, responded in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. The translator quickly processed their words. Visitors from the star path, you arrive as the Great Father weakens. Are you harbingers of renewal or witnesses to our ending? Elena felt a chill at the Zephyrians' words. They clearly understood that their world was dying, and their first question was whether humanity had come to save them or simply watch them perish. We have come to offer you a new beginning, Elena replied. We know that your star is dying and that your world faces great danger. We offer you passage to a new home among the stars, where your people can live and prosper. The Zephyrian leader exchanged glances with their companions, and Elena could see a complex mix of emotions playing across their translucent features. Hope, fear, wonder, and something else that might have been relief. You speak of star travel as if it were possible for beings of flesh and crystal, the leader said. Yet here you stand, having descended from the sky in vessels of metal. Perhaps the ancient songs were true, that in the time of ending, friends would come from distant stars. Commander Park stepped forward. Your people have songs about visitors from other worlds? Stories passed down for generations beyond counting. Another Zephyrian explained. Tales of the star friends who would come when the light of the Great Father grew dim. Many thought them only myths, but The circle of keepers maintained faith that the songs spoke truth. Elena felt goosebumps rise on her arms. The Zephyrians had been waiting for them, in a sense. Their mythology had prepared them for this exact moment. "We would be honored to be your star friends," Elena said. "But we must act quickly. Your world has little time remaining, and we must begin preparations to move your people to safety." The Zephyrian leader, who had introduced himself as Keeper Mordan, nodded gravely. "The circle has felt the trembling of the world heart and seen the withering of the crystal gardens. We know our time grows short, but to leave the homeland, to abandon the burial crystals of our ancestors, this is a decision that cannot be made by the circle alone." "What do you need?" Elena asked. "The harmony must be achieved. All circles of all cities must sing together, and the song must be one of agreement. Only then can such a momentous choice be made." Elena's heart sank. Achieving consensus among 2.4 million Zephyrians could take weeks or months, time they simply didn't have. But Commander Park had an idea. "How long does it typically take to achieve harmony for important decisions?" she asked. "For matters affecting all circles? When the crystals sing strongly, perhaps a full cycle of the lesser moon. When they sing weakly, as they do now with the Great Father's dimming, perhaps 3 cycles." Elena did quick mental calculations. A Zephyrian lunar cycle was roughly equivalent to 10 Earth days. 3 cycles meant 30 days, which was cutting it close, but might be manageable if everything went perfectly. "Honored Keeper," Elena said, "we would like to help facilitate this harmony. We have technologies that might help your circles communicate more effectively across the distances of your world." Mordan's large eyes showed interest. "You would share star knowledge to help us achieve unity? This is unexpected generosity from strangers." "Not strangers," Elena corrected gently. "Star friends, as your ancient songs foretold." Over the next several hours, Elena and her teams worked with the Zephyrians to understand their communication systems. What they discovered was remarkable. The crystal formations that decorated Zephyrian cities weren't just ornamental or functional. They were living communication networks that allowed Zephyrians to share thoughts and emotions across vast distances. The problem was that with their star dying, the crystals were losing power, making long-distance communication increasingly difficult. Commander Park, who had extensive experience with quantum communication systems, realized that human technology could potentially boost the crystal networks, allowing the Zephyrians to achieve harmony much more quickly than would otherwise be possible. "If we can establish quantum relay stations at key points around the planet, we can amplify the crystal network signals," she explained to Elena. "It won't be perfect, but it should allow for planet-wide communication within 48 hours. Elena felt a surge of hope. "Do it. Whatever resources you need." As Park's teams began working with Zephyrian crystal singers to establish the communication network, Elena returned to her shuttle to contact Captain Chun with an update. "Sarah, first contact has been successful beyond our wildest dreams," Elena reported. "The Zephyrians have been culturally prepared for our arrival through their mythology. They're willing to consider evacuation, but they need to achieve something called harmony, essentially a planet-wide consensus, before they can make the decision." "How long?" Sarah's voice came back tight with tension. "Originally, it could have taken a month, but Commander Park thinks we can boost their communication systems to achieve consensus within 48 hours. "Elena, we have a problem. The Council ship has been scanning our fleet, and they're demanding immediate answers about what we're doing here. I can stall them for maybe another day, but after that..." Elena understood. After that, the Council would discover the first contact mission, and everything would change. The legal protections that came with the Zephyrians being a contacted species would only apply if they had formally agreed to accept human aid and had been registered with the Galactic Census Bureau. "We'll make it work, Sarah. We have to." As Elena signed off, she looked out at the crystal city of Enealthara, where humans and Zephyrians were working together to save an entire civilization. Whatever happened with the Council, whatever consequences they all faced, this moment was worth it. The Zephyrians deserved a chance to survive, and humanity was going to make sure they got it. The next 36 hours were among the most intense in Elena Vasquez's career. Across the Zephyrian homeworld, human technical teams worked alongside Zephyrian crystal singers to establish the quantum relay network that would allow planet-wide communication. The work was delicate, requiring a perfect marriage of human quantum technology and Zephyrian biocrystal systems. Elena stood in the central crystal chamber of Inalthara, watching as Commander Park and a Zephyrian crystal singer named Velterra worked to calibrate the first relay station. The chamber was breathtaking, a cathedral-like space where massive crystals grew from floor to ceiling, their surfaces pulsing with organic light that seemed to respond to the emotional state of the Zephyrians present. The harmonic frequencies are almost aligned, Velterra sang, their voice creating visible patterns in the crystalline formations around them. Your star technology sings in harmony with our world songs. Park monitored her instruments carefully. Elena, this is incredible. The Zephyrian Crystal Network operates on principles we're only beginning to understand. It's not just communication, it's empathic resonance. They're sharing actual emotions and thoughts across the network. Elena felt a chill of understanding. That's how they achieve harmony. They don't just vote or discuss. They literally share their feelings about important decisions until they reach emotional consensus. Which explains why they've never had war. Park continued. When you can feel the pain your actions cause others, violence becomes almost impossible. As the final calibrations were completed, the crystal chamber erupted in a symphony of light and sound. The massive crystals began to pulse in perfect synchronization, and Elena could feel something she had never experienced before, a gentle pressure at the edges of her consciousness that felt like dozens of voices singing in perfect harmony. The network awakens, Keeper Mordan announced, his voice filled with wonder. For the first time since the Great Father began his dying, all circles of all cities can hear each other's songs. The harmony can begin. Elena activated her communicator to contact the New Horizon. Sarah, the communication network is online. The Zephyrians are beginning their consensus process. Good work, Elena. How long do you think it will take? Velterra estimates 6 to 8 hours for full planetary participation, then another 4 to 6 hours for the actual decision-making process. There was a pause before Sarah responded. Elena, I need to tell you something. The Council ship is demanding permission to inspect our vessels. They're claiming that our navigation failure story is inconsistent with their sensor readings. Elena's heart sank. How much time do we have? I'm buying us as much as I can, but probably no more than 12 hours before they force a confrontation. Elena looked around the crystal chamber, where Zephyrians were beginning to gather for the Harmony ceremony. Sarah, whatever happens to the Council, this is the right thing to do. These people deserve a chance to survive. I know, Elena. Just work as fast as you can. As Elena ended the communication, Keeper Mordan approached her with several other Zephyrian leaders. Star friend Elena, the circles have been contacted, and the Great Harmony begins. But there are concerns that must be addressed before our people can make this momentous choice. What kind of concerns? Elena asked. An elderly Zephyrian named Keeper Sildana stepped forward. Some circles fear that leaving our world means abandoning the crystal ancestors. Our burial crystals contain the preserved consciousness of generations of our people. How can we ask them to leave their eternal rest? Elena felt the weight of the question. She had not fully understood the depth of Zephyrian's spiritual connection to their homeworld. Is it possible to transport the burial crystals? To bring your ancestors with you to the new world? Mordan and Sildana exchanged glances. The burial crystals are massive formations, grown over centuries. They cannot be moved as smaller crystals can. But perhaps what? Elena encouraged. In the oldest songs, there are tales of the crystal ancestors agreeing to new forms when great need arose. If we could sing to them, explain the necessity, they might consent to transfer their essence to portable memory crystals. Elena felt a surge of hope. How long would such a process take? If it could be done at all, perhaps half a cycle of the lesser moon. 5 of your days. Elena's heart sank. They didn't have 5 days. But then she had an idea. What if we could amplify the crystal network even further? What if we could help you communicate with the crystal ancestors more efficiently? Park overheard the conversation and approached. Elena, I might have a solution. Our quantum communication arrays could potentially interface directly with the Zephyrian crystal network. We could create a planet-wide amplification field that would boost every crystal formation simultaneously. Velterra looked intrigued. Such star magic might allow us to reach even the deepest ancestor crystals, those buried in the planetary core. But the power requirements. Our ship's fusion reactors can provide whatever power you need, Elena assured them. Over the next 4 hours, while the Harmony ceremony continued throughout Zephyrian civilization, Elena and Park worked to implement the planetary amplification system. It required linking every human ship in the fleet to create a massive quantum field generator. But the technical challenges were worth it when the system came online. The effect was immediately visible. Crystal formations across the planet began to glow more brightly than they had in decades. In the chamber where Elena stood, the massive crystals began to resonate with new voices, ancient harmonies that had been silent since the star began its dying process. The ancestors sing, Keeper Mordan whispered, tears streaming down his translucent cheeks. They sing of journeys to new stars, of carrying the light of home to distant places. They give their blessing to the great departure. Elena felt tears in her own eyes as the crystal chamber filled with harmonies that seemed to speak directly to her soul. The crystal ancestors were not just approving the evacuation. They were welcoming it as a chance for their civilization to spread among the stars. Star friend Elena, Sildana, approached with something that looked like wonder in her large eyes. The ancestors speak of memory transfer protocols, ways to compress their essence into portable crystals that can be carried to the new world and grown into new ancestor gardens. Elena's communicator chirped with an urgent message from Captain Shun. Elena, we have a serious problem. The Council ship is demanding immediate boarding access to inspect our fleet. I can't stall them much longer. Elena looked around the crystal chamber, where the most important decision in Zephyrian history was taking place. Sarah, we need more time. Just a few more hours. I don't know if I can give you that. Commander Vextar is threatening to declare our entire fleet in violation of Council directives. Elena made a decision that would change everything. Sarah, patch me through to Commander Vextar. I want to speak to him directly. Elena, that's not advisable. Once you're on record communicating with a Council representative, do it, Sarah. It's time to stop hiding what we're doing. Within minutes, Elena found herself in direct communication with the Vorthan commander of the Council patrol ship. Commander Vextar appeared on her portable display, his reptilian features showing typical Vorthan disdain for what he clearly considered human deception. Dr. Vasquez, you will explain immediately why your fleet is violating Council directives in this system. Vextar's translated voice was sharp and commanding. Elena took a deep breath. Commander, we are conducting a humanitarian rescue operation for the intelligent species on the third planet of this system. Vextar's expression shifted to what Elena interpreted as surprise, then anger. That planet contains a pre-contact civilization. Any interference is strictly forbidden under Galactic Law 847b. The Zephyrians are no longer a pre-contact civilization, Commander. We have initiated formal first contact protocols and are responding to their request for emergency evacuation assistance. Impossible. First contact requires Council authorization. You have no such authorization. Elena stood straighter, drawing on reserves of confidence she didn't know she possessed. Commander, emergency first contact protocols allow for immediate intervention when a species faces imminent extinction for natural cosmic events. The dying star in this system qualifies as such an event. You are attempting to use a legal technicality to circumvent clear Council directives, Vextar accused. I'm attempting to save 2.4 million innocent lives, Elena replied firmly. Lives that the Council decided weren't worth saving because of bureaucratic procedures. The chamber around Elena had gone silent as the Zephyrians realized that something significant was happening. Keeper Mordan approached and whispered urgently. Starfriend Elena, the harmony is nearly complete. The circles have reached agreement, and the ancestors have given their blessing. Our people choose to accept your offer of rescue. Elena felt a surge of triumph. Commander Vextar, I am pleased to inform you that the Zephyrians have formally accepted human assistance and request immediate registration as a contacted species under Council protection. Vextar's expression grew even more hostile. This entire operation is a violation of established procedures. You will cease all activities immediately and submit to Council investigation. I'm afraid I can't do that, Commander. We have a legal obligation to complete the evacuation of a contacted species facing planetary extinction. Any interference with that operation would itself be a violation of Council law. Elena could see that Vextar was struggling with the legal implications of what she had just said. By completing first contact and gaining Zephyrian consent for evacuation, the human fleet had changed the entire legal framework governing their activities. You will not move a single Zephyrian from this planet without explicit Council authorization, Vextar finally declared. Elena looked around the crystal chamber, where hundreds of Zephyrians were watching the confrontation with growing understanding that their fate was being decided by alien politics. Commander, Elena said quietly, are you ordering me to leave an intelligent species to die because filling out the proper paperwork would take too long? The challenge hung in the air between them. Elena knew she was forcing Vextar into an impossible position. If he ordered them to abandon the Zephyrians, he would be personally responsible for genocide. If he allowed the evacuation to proceed, he would be tacitly approving human defiance of Council authority. You will proceed with evacuation operations, Vextar finally said, his voice tight with anger. But this matter will be reported to the full Council, and there will be consequences for your actions. Understood, Commander. We'll gladly face those consequences. As the communication ended, Elena felt both relief and trepidation. They had won the legal battle, but the political war was just beginning. However, that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, they had 2.4 million lives to save. Keeper Mordan approached with what Elena had learned to recognize as the Zephyrian expression for profound gratitude. Starfriend Elena, the harmony is complete. Our people have chosen to trust in your friendship and accept the gift of new life among distant stars. Elena smiled, feeling tears of joy streaming down her face. Honored Keeper, it's not a gift. It's what any decent civilization would do for their friends. As the crystal chamber erupted in celebration, human and Zephyrian teams began the massive logistics of planning a planetary evacuation. They had achieved the impossible, turned a dying civilization's end into the beginning of a new chapter among the stars. But Elena knew the real challenges were just beginning. Moving 2.4 million Zephyrians to safety would require every resource humanity could muster, and they would have to do it while under the scrutiny of a hostile galactic council. Still, as she watched humans and Zephyrians working together in the crystal chamber, Elena felt confident they would find a way. After all, they were no longer just following orders or procedures. They were doing what was right, and that made all the difference. The evacuation of an entire planet turned out to be the most complex logistical operation humanity had ever attempted. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the main cargo bay of the New Horizon, watching as Zephyrian families prepared for their journey to the stars. The sight was both heartbreaking and beautiful, as these gentle beings carefully packed their most precious possessions into storage containers designed by human engineers and Zephyrian crystal workers working together. The past 2 weeks had been a whirlwind of activity. Every available human transport ship had been pressed into service, from massive military carriers to civilian freight haulers that had never been designed to carry passengers. The human fleet had grown to over 40 vessels as ships arrived from across human space, their crews volunteering for a mission that could end their careers but would save millions of lives. Status report, Sarah requested from her operations team. Lieutenant Webb consulted his displays. We're ahead of schedule on several fronts. The Zephyrians have been incredibly organized in their departure preparations. They've managed to compress their essential cultural artifacts and memories into portable crystal matrices that take up much less space than we originally calculated. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached with a Zephyrian she had come to know well over the past weeks. Keeper Velterra had become the primary liaison between their species, helping coordinate the massive undertaking with remarkable efficiency. Captain Chun, Velterra sang in their melodic voice. The Circle of Keepers wishes to express profound gratitude for the generosity of the Star Friends. Our children will grow under new suns because of your courage. Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her throat that came whenever she truly understood the magnitude of what they were doing. Honored Keeper, we're honored to help. How are the boarding procedures progressing? The first wave of evacuees is ready for departure, Elena reported. Families with young children and elderly Zephyrians are being processed now. We've managed to keep family units together, and the Zephyrians have been incredibly patient with the necessary medical checks and documentation. The medical checks have been one of the most challenging aspects of the evacuation. Dr. Sarah Kim, the fleet's chief medical officer, had worked around the clock to understand Zephyrian physiology and ensure they could survive the journey to Proxima B. Fortunately, the Zephyrians were remarkably adaptable, their bioengineered bodies capable of adjusting to different atmospheric conditions within a reasonable range. Any word from the Council? Sarah asked. Webb's expression darkened. Admiral Rodriguez reports that the Council is in emergency session. There are rumors that some member species are calling for sanctions against humanity, while others are supporting our actions. The Aquarian Republic has formally commended our humanitarian efforts. And the hegemony? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Counselor Vextar has filed formal charges against the entire human fleet for violation of galactic law. They're demanding our expulsion from Council membership and the immediate return of all Zephyrians to their homeworld. Elena shook her head in disgust. Return them to die, you mean? Captain, Velterra interjected, if I may speak. The Council beings who would force us to remain and perish, do they not understand that we are people like themselves? Do they not value the songs we sing or the crystals we grow? Sarah knelt down to Velterra's height, looking into the Zephyrians' large, expressive eyes. Honor Keeper, I think some of them have forgotten what it means to help those in need. But others remember, and they support what we're doing. The Crystalline Collective has filed an amicus brief supporting the evacuation, Webb added. They argue that any species with crystal-based technology deserves protection under the Cultural Heritage Preservation Act. Commander Park approached with updates from the surface. Captain, we've got some wonderful news from the planet. The Zephyrians have managed to successfully transfer the consciousness patterns from their major ancestor crystals into portable memory matrices. They'll be able to recreate their ancestral burial sites on Proxima B. This was better news than Sarah had dared hope for. One of her greatest fears had been that the Zephyrians would feel spiritually disconnected from their new home. But if they could bring their ancestors with them, the transition would be much easier. How's the planetary situation? Sarah asked. Deteriorating rapidly, Elena replied grimly. Surface temperatures have dropped by an average of 15 degrees in the past week, and we're seeing massive ecosystem collapse across 2 continents. We have maybe 3 more weeks before the planet becomes completely uninhabitable. Sarah nodded. And our evacuation timeline? If everything goes perfectly, we can have the entire population off-world in 4 weeks. But we're cutting it very close. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Rodriguez back on Earth. Sarah took the call in her ready room, leaving Elena and Park to continue coordinating the evacuation efforts. Admiral, Sarah answered. Rodriguez looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days. Sarah, the political situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Council has officially censured humanity and is threatening to impose trade sanctions if we don't cease evacuation activities immediately. Sarah felt her heart sink. Sir, we can't stop now. We are in the middle of the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. I know that, Captain, but the pressure from some Council members is enormous. The hegemony is threatening to withdraw from several joint defense treaties if we continue defying Council authority. What about the other species that support us? The support is there, but it's not universal. The Aquarian Republic, the Crystalline Collective, and the Free Traders Alliance are backing us, but the hegemony has the militant orders and the corporate federation on their side. It's a political nightmare. Sarah thought for a moment. Admiral, what if we could demonstrate that this evacuation is benefiting the entire galaxy, not just the Zephyrians? What do you mean? Elena's preliminary studies suggest that Zephyrian biocrystal technology could revolutionize galactic communication systems. If we can show that saving them provides tangible benefits to all Council species, it might change the political calculus. Rodriguez looked intrigued. You think their technology is that significant? I think it could change the way the entire galaxy communicates. Imagine instant, empathic communication across interstellar distances. The implications for diplomacy, trade, even scientific collaboration would be enormous. Sarah, that's a hell of a gamble. You're betting the future of human galactic relations on theoretical technology applications. No, sir. I'm betting on doing the right thing and trusting that the universe will reward moral courage. Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. All right, Captain. I'll give you political cover for as long as I can. But you need to complete this evacuation quickly, and you need to be prepared for the consequences. Understood, sir. We'll get them all to safety. After the call ended, Sarah returned to the cargo bay where evacuation preparations continued. What she saw there reinforced her conviction that they were doing the right thing. Human crew members were working alongside Zephyrian families, helping elderly Zephyrians navigate the unfamiliar technology of human transport ships, while Zephyrian children played games with human technicians. Commander Park approached with a datapad. Captain, I think you need to see this. The Zephyrians have been studying our quantum communication systems, and they've made some remarkable improvements. Sarah looked at the technical readouts Park was showing her. I don't understand all the technical details, but these numbers look impressive. They are. By integrating their biocrystal technology with our quantum arrays, they've increased communication efficiency by over 300%. And that's just in the past week of working together. Elena joined them, her face showing excitement. Sarah, it's more than just technical improvements. The Zephyrians have a completely different approach to information processing. Where we see data transmission, they see empathic connection. They're teaching us to build technology that doesn't just transfer information, but emotion and understanding. As if to demonstrate Elena's point, a young Zephyrian approached Sarah with something in their hands. It was a small crystal formation, no larger than a human fist, but it was pulsing with gentle light. Star friend Captain, the young Zephyrian said in carefully learned English, this is gratitude crystal. It holds the thankfulness of my family circle for your kindness. Sarah accepted the crystal, and the moment it touched her skin, she felt something extraordinary. A warm sensation of appreciation and love flowed through her, not just from the young Zephyrian, but from their entire extended family. She could feel their joy at the prospect of survival, their amazement at human generosity, and their hope for the future their children would have among the stars. Thank you, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received. As the young Zephyrian rejoined their family, Elena put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. Now you understand why we have to save them. It's not just about preserving a species. It's about preserving a way of being that the galaxy desperately needs. Sarah nodded, still feeling the afterglow of the gratitude crystal's empathic message. How many more do we need to evacuate? About 1.8 million, spread across the 3 remaining major population centers. We can get them all if we work around the clock, but it's going to be close. As if summoned by their conversation, Keeper Mordan approached with several other senior Zephyrians. Starfriend Captain, the Circle of Keepers has been discussing the great journey ahead. We wish to contribute more than simply being passengers on your generous vessels. What do you mean, Honored Keeper? Sarah asked. Our Crystal Singers have been working with your star engineers to improve the speed and efficiency of your ships. If you will allow us, we can grow crystal matrices that will enhance your vessel's capabilities for the journey to the new world. Commander Park's eyes lit up. Captain, If they can improve our engines and life support systems, we could cut the journey time to Proxima B in half. That would mean lower resource consumption and reduced risk for everyone. Sarah looked around the cargo bay, where humans and Zephyrians continued their extraordinary cooperation. Honored Keeper, we would be grateful for your help. This is your journey as much as ours. Over the next week, the collaboration between human technology and Zephyrian biocrystal engineering produced results that exceeded everyone's expectations. Ships that had struggled to maintain interstellar cruising speeds found themselves capable of sustained high-velocity travel. Life support systems that had been pushed to their limits were enhanced by biological air and water purification systems that the Zephyrians could grow in a matter of hours. But the most remarkable development came when the Zephyrians began sharing their empathic communication technology with human crews. For the first time, humans experienced what it was like to truly understand another person's emotions directly, without the barriers of language or cultural misunderstanding. The effect on crew morale was immediate and profound. Conflicts that had simmered between different ships' crews evaporated when people could feel each other's genuine intentions. Human and Zephyrian children began playing together using empathic games that required no shared language. It's like they're teaching us to be better humans, Elena observed as she watched a group of mixed human and Zephyrian families working together to prepare meals that both species could enjoy. Sarah nodded. Maybe that's why we were meant to save them. Not just for their benefit, but for ours. The evacuation continued around the clock, but every day brought new reports of deteriorating conditions on the Zephyrian homeworld. Massive storms racked the planet as atmospheric systems collapsed, and seismic activity increased as the planetary core cooled. They were literally racing against the death of a world, but they were winning. With each transport ship that departed for Proxima B, the Sanctuary Fleet proved that when species worked together, they could accomplish the impossible. The greatest test, however, was yet to come.